They cling like shadows, subtle, yet always there. 2 years have passed since the day that marked 2 years after everything happened. It was supposed to be a simple trip to the beach with my son, Leonard. My husband, Alex, couldn't come. Work always took a back seat to my personal needs. I was used to being alone, but that day felt different. In the past, we had laid out towels warmed by the sun, maybe too much so. I lay down, finally free from the world's noise. I asked Leonard to help me apply oil to my back since I couldn't do it alone. Consider this. He's my son, my child. Why did I ask him to do it? At first, it was nothing. Just his hands helping me. But then I felt his presence move closer, and I didn't stop him. Why didn't I stop him? You think you know, but do you really understand your family? There's one moment that can explain everything for me. It happened that day on the beach, and I've never been the same. Alex and I had been married for over 15 years. If you asked anyone who knew us, they'd say we were the perfect couple. A beautiful home, great kids, and a stable life. But the cracks are invisible until you're inside, hiding the emptiness unless you live there. For years, Alex's job was his world. He worked late nights, weekends, and holidays. I told myself he did it for us, for the overtime, for the life he was building for our family. But after a while, the story starts to fall apart. What good is a home if it's always empty? I became invisible to him. When he came home, he barely acknowledged me, stopping to ask about my feelings or needs. We talked briefly about necessities, mostly bills and things for the kids. He loved Leonard and his younger sister, Isa. But even with them there, his presence was like a shadow. There, but not really. I used to sit across from him at the table, wondering if he still saw me. That morning, I remember standing in the kitchen as Alex rushed out the door, grabbing his briefcase. He touched the top of Isa's head, glanced at me apologetically, and said, "Freya, I can't make it today. Something came up at work." I didn't argue, I just nodded like I always do. My throat tightened, but I reassured myself it was okay. Leonard and I could go alone. I carefully controlled my breath. But when I breathed out, my breath caught in my throat. I tried to speak, but no words came out. Still, I stayed silent. I told myself it was okay, that he was just helping me. But his hands lingered there, near the edge of my towel. When he finished, I could feel his hesitation, and so could I. Instead of staying silent, I said, "It's okay. You can keep going. Rub there." The words hung in the air like something toxic. And as soon as they left my lips, I knew I couldn't bear them. Leonard stayed silent. He didn't stop. I closed my eyes tightly, feeling his hands on me, lower than they should have been. My heart raced. He might hear it. I wanted to move, to tell him to stop, but I couldn't. I couldn't let it happen. It still happens now. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was the loneliness, desperate to feel desired, no matter what. Or maybe I just didn't care. That day on the beach, something inside me broke, because nothing would ever be the same. If you've made it this far into the story, thank you for staying with me. It's hard, and I appreciate you listening. If you find this interesting or know someone who might relate, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps. Sharing stories like this empowers me. I know I'm not alone. Let's get back to the story. After that day at the beach, something changed. I couldn't ignore my feelings or the way I saw Leonard looking at me. It wasn't just a one-time thing. It was constant. Whenever I looked at him, there was something different in his eyes. something I didn't want to admit but couldn't ignore. I tried to push it away. When we got home that evening, I did everything I could to act normal. I made dinner and asked Leonard about school, but I struggled. I did laundry late into the night, my hands shaking as I replayed everything. It was his fault. The way he lingered made the tension in my body worse. I hated my body and myself for it, and him for making me feel this way about my own child. Alex came home late as usual, his tired face leaning in to kiss my cheek. "Habit is just a ghost," I said, expecting some response. He mumbled and nodded, already halfway to the living room. His presence was always there, like an afterthought. I felt invisible again that night, lying in bed as Alex snored softly beside me. The house was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I thought about Leonard, his hands, his look. I knew it was wrong. I knew I should stop it before it went any further. But there was something else. Something dark, something lonely that wanted to keep it. That craved the attention, the touch, the feeling of existence. I watched the days pass, but Leonard didn't. Though he didn't say a word, his silence spoke volumes. He didn't avoid me. Instead, it was like he was waiting. As I moved around the house, I could feel him watching me, ready. As I sat alone on the sofa at night, I let it happen. I didn't stop him. I didn't make him stop. The following weekend came. It was hot again, and the house felt stifling. Alex was away, finishing up some things. The minute he left, Leonard and I would be alone again. I asked if he wanted to go back to the beach. Just the two of us. I'm not sure why I did it. I thought being outside might help clear my thoughts. Maybe I wanted to test myself, to see if I could control it. The drive was quiet this time. Leonard didn't put on his headphones. He just sat there, looking out the window, his knee bouncing. I wanted to say something, anything to break the silence. But every time I tried to speak, the words got stuck in my throat. When we got to the beach, it was almost empty. I remember the blue of the sea, the breeze on my face, and laying out the towels just like before. Leonard helped me set up, but this time I didn't ask him to rub oil on my back. I lay there with my eyes closed, telling myself everything was okay. But with my eyes closed, I could feel his gaze. I could feel him looking at me. The real breaking point came later that afternoon. We decided to rinse off at the beach showers before going home. It was supposed to be a quick rinse, just to get the sand off. But something happened that I still can't explain. When we got to the showers, Leonard went under first, letting the water run down his back while I stood back, watching him briefly before going to the second one. I'm not sure what came over me, but I took off my clothes and stood next to him, the cold water hitting my skin. Leonard looked at me surprised. I'm not sure if it was shock, confusion, or something else, but he stayed silent. I looked at him and said, "You should take off your shorts too, to wash." I'm not sure why I said it. Maybe I was trying to prove something to myself, that I could stop this. Or maybe I was testing him. He hesitated for a moment, then did as I said, taking off his shorts. We stood there alone, with the water pouring over us, washing away everything but what we were. Shocked, I looked away from him and said softly, "Help me with my back." His hands were gentle, just like before. But there was no mistaking the tension I felt in him. I felt a chill the moment he touched my waist. I felt something inside me. The air seemed to thicken, the sound of the ocean overwhelming. I could have stopped it. I had the power to. But I chose not to. I leaned back into him, reaching for his hands and guiding them to my chest. He didn't pull away. I can't explain what happened next. I won't. It was a moment of darkness, of need, of loneliness, and something else I don't want to name. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't slow. It was desperate, fierce, wrong in every way. But I couldn't stop it. I didn't want to. When it was over, we just stood there, the water still pouring over us, washing away the evidence, but not the memory. He held me with a depth of affection I hadn't felt in years, and I let him. Afterward, we dried off, gathered our things, and walked to the car in silence. I could see Leonard out of the corner of my eye, his face calm, my movements stiff. I knew I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, but for the first time in years, the drive home was silent. The car felt too small, too heavy, like the weight of what we had just done was pressing down on us. I gripped the steering wheel, trying to focus on the road, but my thoughts were swirling. I could still feel his presence. Leonard, his hands, his body, the weight of keeping what we had just done a secret, stealing glances at him in the passenger seat. He sat stiffly, looking out the window, his jaw clenched. Then, suddenly, he spoke. "Mother," he said, his voice soft, almost uncertain. I looked away from him. I couldn't. But I heard him. "What just happened?" My heart skipped a beat. For a moment, I thought about pretending I hadn't heard him, changing the subject. But there was no point in fighting it anymore. I took a shaky breath and said, "I don't know." It was the truth, or at least the closest thing to it. I didn't know what had happened, or why. I just knew that everything had changed. We didn't speak again until we got home. I turned off the car in the driveway, but neither of us moved. Leonard finally did, looking at me intently. It was the first time I saw something in his eyes that scared me. It wasn't confusion, guilt, or even shame. It was longing. "How long have you felt this way?" he asked, his words sending chills down my spine. I had been wondering the same thing. I looked at him then, and it felt like something inside me shattered. "I don't know," I muttered. "Maybe longer than I want to admit." We were both silent after that. Sitting there in the dark, I wondered if we should go inside, try to pretend nothing had happened. But Leonard had other ideas. Before I could open the door, he leaned in, kissed me softly, hesitantly, as if he was afraid I would pull away. But I didn't. I let him kiss me, and I kissed him back. I lost control then, unsure if it was the loneliness, the years of neglect, or the way Leonard looked at me. I felt a connection I hadn't felt in a long time. But I let it happen. Right there, outside our house, Leonard pulled me closer, his hands running over me like they were meant to be there. In that moment, I felt alive, desired, seen for the first time in years. I didn't care about anything else. I'm not sure how long we stayed like that, tangled up in each other. But eventually we made our way inside. I don't remember much about the walk to the door. Just the feeling of his touch on mine. The silence between us humming with a power we didn't need to discuss. We just knew we had to keep going. Once inside, everything intensified. Like we had been holding back for so long, and the dam had finally broken. The next few days were a blur. Leonard was always near me, finding excuses to touch me or watch me when he thought I wasn't looking. I told myself to pull away, to end whatever this was. But every time I looked at him, I saw the same loneliness I felt. It was like we were mirrors of each other, reflecting the same emptiness, and I couldn't refuse it. I didn't want to. At night, I would lie in bed next to Alex, listening to the rhythm of his breathing, thinking about Leonard in the next room, about how his hands felt and the effect he had on me. I felt alive again, and then I would close my eyes, guilt coiling in my chest like a snake. I expected it to pass, but it didn't. I couldn't stop the growing tension between us, which got stronger each day until it finally exploded late one night. Alex was asleep, and Leonard and I were in the kitchen. I was washing dishes, trying to focus. Everything stopped as I felt his presence behind me. I turned around, and there he was, looking at me just like he had on the beach. "Leonard," I whispered softly, trying to warn him. But he didn't stop. He moved closer, so close I could feel his breath on my neck. I murmured, "I can't stop thinking about you." I froze. My heart was racing. I thought about telling him to stop, to go back to his room and leave me alone. But I didn't. Instead, I looked up at him and said the one thing I shouldn't have. "I can't stop either." And that was it. That was the moment everything fell apart. Leonard kissed me again, more forcefully this time. In a moment of desperation, I kissed him back. I didn't care that it was wrong. I didn't care about Alex or the life we had built. All I cared about was Leonard, my son, the one person who made me feel like I mattered. Since that day on the beach, things have never been the same, and I'm not sure they ever will be. Leonard and I have crossed a line, and I don't know if we can ever go back. One thing is clear, though. No matter how hard I try to convince myself otherwise, what started as a moment has turned into something I can't control. The constant guilt is overwhelming, but it doesn't stop me. That scares me. Often, I look at my husband, Alex, and my daughter, and I wonder how they can go about their days, oblivious to the cracks that are spreading through our family. Maybe they're too caught up in their own lives to notice my decline, or maybe I've just gotten better at hiding it. But I know this can't go on forever. Secrets have a way of coming out, and when they do, the consequences will be devastating. I've said everything I can. I've tried to stop, told myself it's wrong, that Leonard deserves better, that I deserve better. But every time he looks at me like I'm the only person in the world, he makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years, maybe ever. And that's the truth I have to face. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if I can. And that's why I'm sharing my story with you. Maybe someone out there has the answer, an idea I haven't thought of. Maybe you can help me find a solution to the mess I've created before it's too late. So, if you have any advice, if you've been through something similar or know someone who has, I want to hear from you. If nothing else, let this serve as a warning. It can take you to places you never thought you'd go. Don't let yourself get lost like I did. Don't let your reality crumble before you even realize what's happening. Because once you cross that line, there's no going back. My name is Lily, and I'm 18 years old. My life has always been quiet and simple. Just my dad and me, since my mum left a long time ago. She disappeared one day, like she had vanished, leaving behind only emptiness that my dad and I have filled with warmth and love. We've always been close, like two ships sailing the same stormy sea, guiding each other through rough waters. A few months ago, I started university. It was a big change for someone like me, who was used to the stability of our small, sheltered world. It was a significant change. Lectures, meeting new people, and navigating crowded hallways. All of it felt thrilling, yet intimidating. My father was proud of my efforts, but I could see his struggle with loneliness each time I came home. His bright smile would light up my day. Nevertheless, university life quickly took over. I started going to parties, mostly out of curiosity. The atmosphere was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Loud music, unfamiliar faces, and a captivating sense of freedom filling the air. It was a new side of life I had never known. After one of my first parties, I returned home late at night when the city was completely quiet. My father was in the kitchen, sitting with a cup of tea, waiting for me. His expression was gentle, but I could see the underlying concern. "How was the party?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "It was fun," I replied, avoiding details. He nodded, and silence filled the room. An unusual tension lingered, which I chose to ignore. Each evening I left the house, that same unease would resurface, as if he feared the outside world might change me. One evening started like any other. Loud music, dancing, and a drink in hand. This time I let myself indulge a little. The warmth of the alcohol gave me a sense of boldness and ease, as if the whole world responded to my smile. When I got home late, I found the door unlocked, as it always was when my father waited for me. He was in the living room, working on his laptop. Even at that late hour, my father looked composed and confident. His broad shoulders and toned physique, along with the tattoos visible under his shirt sleeves, showed his dedication to fitness. His thick, dark hair was perfectly styled, with a few grey streaks that only added to his charm. I entered the room with a skip, and approaching him from behind, gently tapped his shoulders. "Hey," I exclaimed, stifling a giggle. My dad jumped slightly, then burst into laughter, leaning forward as he always did when genuinely amused. "What are you up to?" he asked, noticing the scent of my perfume and the alcohol on me. "Living life to the fullest." I giggled, feeling a slight dizziness. As he stood up and turned toward me, he placed his hands gently yet firmly on my shoulders. His touch was warm and steady, as if his hands were meant to protect me from everything. His eyes radiated tenderness, but suddenly I noticed something different, something odd. There was something about the way he looked at me, and the way his smile broke through the last of my tipsy calmness that made me pause. My laughter faded as I tilted my head back to meet his gaze. That look held everything: care, love, warmth, and a hint of reproach. But there was something else too. Startled, I quickly stepped away, trying to find the humor again to ease the situation. "You always keep such a serious face. Try relaxing a bit," I said, gesturing dismissively before retreating to my room. Yet, once behind the closed door, I lay on my bed for what felt like hours, an inexplicable sensation lingering within me. His calm yet firm voice interrupted my thoughts. "Lily, go take a shower. You need to freshen up," he said, tilting his head as he spoke. I nodded slightly, deliberately avoiding his gaze. His concern had always been more than just a duty, but today it seemed to have a distinct essence. I proceeded to the bathroom, leaving the door ajar as was our custom. We had always trusted each other implicitly. I turned on the water, letting the hot stream envelop me, its warmth merging with the whirl of emotions in my mind. Under the shower, my thoughts drifted to him. His hands, which had grasped me so firmly moments before, and a smile that seemed to penetrate the depths of my being. Each droplet of water that touched my skin felt imbued with his essence. as if his touch lingered with me. I stepped into the cascade of water, feeling its weight pressing against my neck and shoulders as I gradually submerged. The warm flow enveloped me, spreading heat throughout my body. My thoughts were dominated by his presence, this image occupying my mind entirely, permeating every aspect of my being. I tried to focus on the sensation of the water and the sound of it cascading. Yet his smile and voice remained vivid, perpetually residing in my thoughts. I noticed a movement from the corner of my eye through the narrow gap in the door. I saw my father watching me, his expression tender yet scrutinizing, with a subtle smile on his lips, as if bewildered by his own presence there. My heart seemed to stop, and I inhaled deeply, not attempting to hide. The water flowed over my skin, but in that instant it felt altered, as if his gaze infused warmth into each droplet. We exchanged glances as if time had paused, memories of our effortless communication surfacing at a mere glimpse. His smile, imbued with soft warmth, had always been my most cherished possession. Even in my childhood, he delighted in snuggling near me, playfully asserting, "Lily, you're my favorite person in the world," patiently awaiting my response. During those years, he always made time for us to share something significant. We often wandered through the park hand in hand, as if we could shield each other from everything beyond our small world. Those walks were my favorites. We always stopped at the tiny ice cream shop. He would say, "Chocolate," with a grin that highlighted the small dimple on his cheek. I always chose chocolate as well, establishing a silent tradition between us. When my ice cream inevitably melted in my hands, he would laugh softly, dabbing my sticky fingers clean with a napkin. He never spoke ill of my mother, even after she left. He somehow managed to say that she merely chose a different life, which didn't mean I was insignificant to her. But I recognized the statements were false. I saw the change in his gaze whenever her name was mentioned, as he hid his pain to shield me. To me, my mother seemed like a shadow, a person who disappeared, abandoning us. I couldn't comprehend how she could leave a man who was an extraordinary father. Over time, my resentment towards her grew, yet he never fostered it. Instead, he taught me kindness, despite hiding the scars of his own heart. He tried to show the essence of love, even when his ability to give was diminished. Reflecting on those moments, I recognized the profound impact he had on my life. His kindness, his smile, and the love he offered became the cornerstones of my existence. As streams of water cascaded down me, I stood there, absorbing the warmth of realization. With my father still nearby, his smile conveyed a subtle apology for intruding on such a private moment. Yet his gaze remained steadfast. I had a surge of unease, but in an unexpectedly composed manner I said, "Come in." He hesitated, then entered the bathroom, briefly glancing at me before quickly averting his gaze to grab a chair beside him. He took a towel and remarked, "You're soaked," his voice steady and familiar. Yet I caught a faint undertone of anxiety. Moving cautiously, as though afraid of startling me, he approached and began drying me with the towel. He started with my shoulders and arms, slowly working his way down. His touch felt familiar, yet carried a strange newness I couldn't define. I looked at his face, noticing the sharp line of his cheekbones and the strength in his jaw, and felt something unfamiliar stir within me. Every motion he made was deliberate and gentle. When he bent closer to dry the droplets on my neck, I felt the warmth of his breath. An overwhelming and inexplicable sensation washed over me, as though we had entered a realm where ordinary rules no longer applied. The thought, "This is wrong," darted through my mind. It's unacceptable, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away from him. The body I had seen countless times now appeared different. His muscles, defined beneath his t-shirt, and the faint tattoos peeking from his sleeves caught my attention. He had always been in good shape, but I had never allowed myself to notice him this way before. My heartbeat quickened, and I was certain he could sense it. For a moment, he froze, still holding the towel, and his gaze locked with mine. It was forbidden, yet in that instant, it felt as though the world had abandoned its rules. His hands, strong but gentle, carried a warmth that lingered. Everything about the moment seemed to defy what should have been. As he began drying my hair with the towel, I felt the tension that had built up in my body slowly begin to fade. His fingers moved gently over my scalp, smoothing the strands with such care that I couldn't resist closing my eyes. Water continued to drip from the ends of my hair, but every motion of his hands felt deliberate, as though he wanted this moment to linger indefinitely. When his fingers brushed against the skin of my neck, a wave of warmth surged through me, spreading to every part of my body. The tightness in my shoulders melted away, as each part of me surrendered to the soothing sensation of his touch. The bathroom, bathed in soft light, seemed to transform into another world, small, enclosed, and shut off from everything else. "Is it better?" he asked gently, his voice scarcely discernible, yet close. I nodded, keeping my eyes closed. My breathing had steadied, but my heart still raced faintly, resembling the flutter of a tiny bird. His every movement conveyed more than simple care. I could sense it in the way his hands lingered momentarily before resuming. "You need to rest," he said after a pause, placing the towel on my shoulders. I opened my eyes and looked up at him. His face was close, his gaze so penetrating that it left me breathless. "Thank you," I whispered, barely recognizing my own voice. He smiled, a faint crease forming on his face, a smile that had always comforted me, but now stirred something deeper, something I couldn't ignore. The moment felt fragile, almost surreal, yet unforgettable. We stood so near that I could hear his steady, warm breaths blending with the gentle sound of water dripping from my hair. My thoughts were scattered, spilling over like the water pooling at our feet. Time seemed suspended, leaving just the two of us in this intimate space. My eyes met his, and there was something new in his expression, something I hadn't noticed before, or perhaps I hadn't allowed myself to see. It wasn't just care or love. It was something stronger, something that broke through the barriers I'd carefully built in my mind. I couldn't determine which of us stepped over the boundary first. Could it have been me? Or could it have been inevitable? I leaned forward, my heart pounding in my chest. My breath caught as my lips met his for a fleeting moment. I thought he might pull away, but he didn't. Instead, his hands rested lightly on my shoulders before pulling me closer. He returned the kiss, soft but sure, as if reassuring me that he felt the same. Everything around us, the reminders of reality, faded away. There were no more rules, no restrictions, nothing but the overwhelming sensation enveloping us like the warm steam in the air. My heart swelled with something entirely new, something powerful and undeniable. His warmth and touch became a part of me, feeling as natural as breathing itself. As we broke apart, I noticed his gaze had deepened, revealing something he had perhaps kept hidden until now. "Lily," he murmured, his voice so tender that I knew nothing between us would ever be the same again. His hands tightened around my waist, and I felt a wave of heat rush through me, leaving no room for doubt about the gravity of this moment. It wasn't the chaotic drunkenness I had experienced an hour ago. This was something entirely different. My heartbeat aligned with his, and every touch seemed to amplify the connection between us. When I looked at him, there was no longer any hesitation. The emotions I had tried to suppress, everything I had kept bottled up, now spilled out freely. He felt it. I could see it in his eyes, and in the way his fingers trembled slightly yet refused to pull away. My mind was clear. The haze of alcohol had long since vanished, but a new kind of intoxication had taken its place. A heady, all-encompassing passion that consumed us both. My breath grew heavier as he pulled me closer. "Are you sure?" he inquired, his voice faint, low, and hesitant, as if fearful of disrupting the fragile moment. I nodded, but it was insufficient. Placing my palm on his chest, I sensed his heart racing as intensely as mine. "Yes," I said, as his hands ascended higher, his fingers tracing the contours of my body. Yet his touch was cautious, as though he feared I might dissipate like morning mist. Nevertheless, I was fully there, every part of me vibrant at that moment. The water continued to flow over us as he pulled me from the bathroom, and the air outside felt brisk against our warm bodies. I sensed only him. His steps were quiet yet purposeful as he gently carried me to his room. He laid me on the bed with the reverence of one performing a sacred ritual, every motion deliberate and unhurried. His hand brushed along my face, pausing at my chin, and he leaned to meet my gaze. "Lily," he murmured, his voice deep and tender, and I pulled him closer, unable to endure even a fleeting moment of separation. There remained nothing to restrain us. We became one, not merely in passion, but in the unspoken acknowledgement that something extraordinary had always existed between us. The room was steeped in silence broken only by our breath. Soft light filtered through the curtains, wrapping us in a warmth that felt as though it existed beyond time itself. The bed beneath us felt like an island, isolated from the vast world left behind the closed door. He leaned in, his breath grazing my skin, his touch confident, yet gentle, as if memorizing every contour of my body. Each delicate caress sent ripples through me, awakening every cell with a pulse of warmth. My heart beat loudly in my chest, and I was certain he could hear, yet his gaze held no urgency, only infinite tenderness. His eyes were so penetrating that I felt utterly bare, far beyond physical exposure. His fingers traced the curve of my face, skimming my cheeks before pausing at my chin and lifting my face. He locked eyes with me, and the moment brimmed with a silent understanding that nothing restrained us anymore. He leaned in again, and our lips met this time in a kiss that was slower, deeper, and filled with an overwhelming tenderness that made my chest ache. His hands glided down my shoulders, every touch imbued with intention, leaving me unable to control the way my body trembled under him. It was as though he could feel exactly what I felt, responding with such gentleness that I was overcome. The air between us grew warmer and thicker, with an almost magical energy that seemed to hum around us. Our movements were unhurried and deliberate, as though we were trying to etch every second into our memories. In that moment, we were entirely in sync, a perfect union where nothing felt artificial. Warmth wrapped around me, and I knew I would carry this memory with me forever. He was so unguarded and infinite. We lay side by side, wrapped in silence, though it was not the kind of silence that felt empty. It was a quiet that spoke louder than any words could. His hand rested lightly on my waist as I stared up at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had just transpired. Thoughts were tangled, caught between reality and the meaning behind it all. Yet, in that moment, I felt neither regret nor shame. Only the warmth and tranquility he always seemed to bring into my life. Turning my head, I looked at him. His expression was serene. However, his eyes, upon meeting mine, communicated significantly more than his expression revealed. I sensed he whispered, as though he comprehended every thought I wished to transmit. I felt it as well. Perhaps it was inappropriate. However, he did not complete his statement, and all that required expression had already been conveyed by our gestures, our caresses, and the manner in which we regarded one another. "What is the next step?" I inquired gently, my stare wavering. His gaze fixed, his eyes softened, and a slight smile graced his lips as he extended his hand to caress my hair. "We are in no hurry," he responded. "We will continue to live as we did previously, but now we comprehend that this moment belongs solely to us. It is something we would bear in silence. No one would ever discover what transpired between us tonight, although I could never conceal it within myself, as it had become integral to my being." He drew me nearer. I rested my head upon his shoulder. The steady cadence of his heartbeat provided solace despite the multitude of unanswered questions that loomed ahead. I was unequivocally certain of one truth. This was our moment, our secret, impervious to external forces. The space between us was imbued with an indescribable yet profoundly robust and intangible connection that intensified with each breath. The silence was not stifling. It had evolved into a silent observer of what remained incomprehensible to others. His hand glided softly along my waist, affirming that this was not a mere illusion, but a reality we had both opted to accept. I scrutinized his face, seeking confirmation of his shared sentiments, and discovered it in the delicate lines around his eyes and a slight elevation of his lips, in a serene, knowing smile. "Do you harbor any regrets?" I murmured, scarcely able to articulate as he posed the question aloud. His gaze met mine with a certainty I lacked. "No, Lily, not for what is real," he declared, dispelling the last remnants of doubt. We refrained from discussing the future or formulating plans. Yet I understood that this moment would be etched in our memories eternally. With my eyes closed, I sensed his breath intertwining with mine, and the surrounding world appeared to soften and quiet. Although the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, one truth remained. This moment was exclusively ours. His fingers traced the contour of my waist, leaving a trail of warmth that resonated throughout my being. The sensation of his breath against my skin anchored me in the present, a profound feeling that seemed to unite us as one.